Hi, it's Jane from Wild Words, Suffolk. Today I have been looking at some of the wild words that we received in the box, and I'm going to try and read this one to you, which I have transcribed because it's not easy to see while being photographed. So I'm going to read it out. It's called The Meadow by Sally Curl. I cannot love him, that man, who lives in that huge house. That house they put on the meadow. The meadow with the hollow trees, teeming with insects and ivy clung, moorhens weighed and skylarks sung. I cannot see that man that was the boy, that boy in the meadow, that meadow of play and childhood dreams, of eels and frogs and sticklebacks in streams. I no longer know that man that lives in that house on that bountiful meadow where we spent carefree days that had no end, immersed in nature, my childhood friend. I cannot speak to him, that man that has that huge house, that house on the meadow, one of the many they built on that fertile soil where insects hummed, now mowers drone, foundations lay deep where roots had grown. I did not recognize that man that lives in that house, the house that grows out of our meadow, that man when smiles past summer's graze over his face, and memories of our hearts once one in this place. I cannot hold his gaze, that man who lives in that house that abuses the meadow, where once in the speedwell and clover we laid, under our oak, a friendship betrayed. I no longer like that man that lives in that house that sprung from the meadow where wild orchids grew, the newt, Mr. Toad, and the common shrew. I no longer speak to that man who lives in that house that rose from our meadow, that man with the Mercedes Benz and his fancy city friends. I no longer see him with innocent eyes under falling elderflower blossom and thundery skies. I no longer value that man that lives in that house, that man who cashed in on our meadow, where ecosystems balanced, life was in tune. Now bats circulate, oxygen turns to fume. I cannot forgive that man who lives in that house, on the meadow that once was, but is no longer, on the meadow where the melodic call of the wren and lark have vanished like the developer promised park. I no longer love that man. That man who lives in that house. That house in the close I now call the meadow, where turtle doves cooed and woodpeckers flew with dipping flight. Gone too are the creatures, our oak and the circling kite. Thanks, Sally, for leaving that in the Wild Words postbox.